to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with my second mock draft of the season. This will be the second of many. Of course, I'll definitely be doing one after free agency, and I'm sure at least 2 or 3 leading up into the draft. I may also do a 2-round mock draft later in the week, so if you guys are interested in that, put it in the comments below. I'll probably just show you guys my first round mock draft and then build off of that. In this mock draft, obviously, it's after the NFL Combine, so stocks have changed for several players, but the team needs haven't changed yet because we haven't seen free agency. But I incorporated some trades as to, what I could see potentially happening at this point in time. This is for fun. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it. I know you guys won't agree with all the picks, but I did my best to try to simulate a realistic draft, at least at this point in time, for all the teams involved. So let's jump right into it. Let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals, who, of course, have the number 1 overall pick. Just a very bad football team. And they have a lot of holes on this team. But when you're picking number 1, and there is a no-doubt quarterback at number 1, and by everybody's standards, Joe Burrow is that guy, you take Joe Burrow. Of course, there were rumors leading up until the Combine that, Joe Burrow may hold out, according to Carson Palmer. He had talked to him. I never bought into it. Joe Burrow then, of course, came out during the Combine and basically said, I'm going to play wherever I'm drafted. He knows that being the number 1 overall pick, you make a lot of money. He doesn't want to risk at all falling out of that. He's not dumb. He will be with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals will draft him. I would be shocked on draft night if that is not the case. The next team we're going to talk about is the Washington Redskins at number 2. The Washington Redskins, there's been rumors with them as well. People have said that they may take Tua. Of course, Ron Rivera had an interview with him. Then rumors started to leak that he told Tua that he would like him to be with the Washington Redskins. I'm not buying it. I think it's smoke. I think it's mirrors. I think they're taking Chase Young. The only reason they're doing that, in my opinion, is to help, their trade market to potentially get a blockbuster trade. But in this mock, they don't get that offer, and they stand pat at number 2, and they take, by most people's standards, the number 1 player overall in this year's draft. Chase Young, he's big, he's fast, he's strong. Best pass rusher, best defensive player in this draft. And the Redskins will pair him up opposite Montez Sweat for the next 10 years. So, good pick there by the Redskins, and we're going to have to find a way to block him as New York Giants fans. Next pick we got up would have been the Detroit Lions, but this will be my first of 2 trades. The Miami Dolphins have moved up from 5 to 3. They will be giving the Lions their 18th pick. So the Lions will be picking at both 5 and 18 in this mock draft. The Dolphins, of course, moved up to get their guy. Tanked for Tua. They moved up. They made sure that they got him. Tua Tagovailoa, who, of course, had a clear medical report, came out during the Combine. I think in the end, Miami will show their true cards, and they will move up to get Tua. I don't think it'll be at 2, though, with the Redskins. I think the Redskins stand pat with Chase Young. They find their partner with the Lions. Of course, they could trade up with the Giants, but the Lions secure that they get their guy with Tua, so they get their quarterback. Next up, the New York Giants. And the New York Giants have been mocked to go several ways. They're one of the hardest teams to mock in this year's draft. Of course, I'm a huge Giants fan. That's what my channel's about. And in my first mock draft, I had them taking Jedrick Wills, an offensive lineman I really like, who actually had a really strong combine. But from everything I'm reading, I don't think the New York Giants, if he's there, are going to pass up on Isaiah Simmons. Of course, that could change after free agency. But right now, today, if you ask me, Isaiah Simmons will be a New York Giant. They, of course, cut Alec Ogletree, Kareem Martin. They need to fill that void. With a linebacker, word has come out that the New York Giants are definitely looking to add an impact linebacker this offseason. That could be in free agency with Corey Littleton. But as of now, without knowing what they're going to do, I think Isaiah Simmons is too good of a talent. He had too strong of a combine to pass up. Perfect modern-day linebacker. New York Giants fans are ecstatic on draft night, getting Isaiah Simmons at number 4. Next up, we've got the Detroit Lions. The Lions now have traded down from the 3 to the 5 spot. And the Lions could go a couple of ways here. I could see them going with a cornerback with Jeffrey Okudah, who I had mocked to them going number 3 overall in my first mock. Or I could see them going with Derrick Brown. Derrick Brown is eventually who I ended up going with. They, of course, cut Snacks Harrison. They need help on that defensive line. Derrick Brown is a stud. He's an athletic freak for a man of his size. He would certainly help them, and he's versatile. He can play on both the end and in the D tackle. I really like this guy. For a man of his size, he is quite athletic, and I think he will help out the Detroit Lions a lot. I think it's a really good pick by the Detroit Lions. Next up, we've got the LA Chargers, and I've seen some mocks now where the Chargers go, they could either go Herbert, they go Love, or they go offensive line. I've seen them being mocked to take Mekhi Becton. I'm going to stand pat and say they take a quarterback. Now, free agency could change all this. If they had Tom Brady, if they had a quarterback in free agency, but right now they don't have a quarterback. They're picking at number 6 overall. They've interviewed Love. They've been linked to Herbert. I've seen Herbert drop in mocks. I'm not buying it. Herbert is 6'6". He's got a cannon for an arm. He's athletic. I was impressed with his combine. Threw a nice deep ball. I'm still sticking with it. Herbert to the Chargers at number 6, and they get their future franchise quarterback, and he gets to stay on the West Coast. Next up, we've got the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, really a team that could go anywhere here. They've committed to Cam Newton, supposedly. We'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But as of now, Cam Newton will be the quarterback. You've already had 3 quarterbacks go off the board. If they wanted to go quarterback here, they could go Jordan Love. I didn't have them doing that. I had them taking the best player, and they're getting good value here. Okudah, by most people's standards, should be a top 5 pick. The Panthers are going to get him at number 7. Okudah did not commit a penalty all of last year in terms of a defensive pass interference or a holding penalty. He's tall. He's pretty fast. I think he ran in the high 4.4s. I think a 4.4, 840. He's strong. He has experience in both playing in man and zone coverage. He's an all-around great cornerback, one of the best cornerbacks to come out of college, in recent history. So I think that the Carolina Panthers get really good value here for Matt Rule with his first pick as the Panthers head coach. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals, and there still has not been an offensive lineman off the board. And if I was a Cardinals fan here, I want an offensive lineman. I'm not sure which one. They're kind of all bundled up for me. But CeeDee Lamb has played with Kyler Murray. There's been there's been things linking the two. I believe it. I think CeeDee Lamb, who played with Kyler Murray at Oklahoma, goes to the Arizona Cardinals and is the first wide receiver off the board. I think that, their head coach there, who is all about the air raid offense, Cliff Kingsbury, sees a guy that worked very well with Kyler Murray in college. They had great chemistry, and he buys into it. CeeDee Lamb goes number 8 to the Arizona Cardinals. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars, team that is really seemingly in rebuild mode. They've gotten rid of A.J. Boye now. Obviously, they got rid of their whole team. I think they're going to probably trade the edge rusher that all the New York Giants fans want, obviously. They could go offense or defense here. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to go O-line. They're getting really good value here. Tristan Wirfs had a killer combine. Absolutely amazing combine. He ran a 4.86, which is absurd. He had a ridiculous vertical leap, ridiculous broad jump. He destroyed the combine. He's versatile. He can play on both the guard and the tackle spot. You stick him somewhere on that offensive line, and they're going to go O-line here. I think the Jaguars could use some beef on the O-line. They're getting good value at pick number 9. Next up, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, of course, had a lot of problems last year, mainly due to the offensive line. They had a lot of issues on that offensive line after trading Kevin Zeitler to the New York Giants. Baker Mayfield really fell back last year. Played a lot better down the stretch, but they definitely need to beef up that offensive line. I think Cleveland knows that, and there's only one offensive lineman off the board. I got them taking Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. Wills had a strong combine. He ran in the low 5s. I think a 5.05 was good on the other tests. A guy that's been a right tackle at the collegiate level, but he's been the blindside protector for Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama. The one knock on him is that he does commit a lot of false start penalties, but overall, I think you're getting great value here at number 10, and it's a need. You're arguably getting the best player left in the draft, and you're filling a need if you're the Cleveland Browns. Got to be happy with this selection. Next up, we've got a trade. The Tampa Bay Bucs have moved up from 14 to 11. The Jets will be receiving the Tampa Bay Bucs second-round pick. And obviously, if you're trading up here, the Tampa Bay Bucs, Bruce Arians, brilliant offensive mind. In this mock, I'm assuming they let Jameis Winston walk. And they go up and they get their quarterback of the future. And I have been on record, I said it in my first mock draft, even though I had him going all the way down to 24 to the Saints. In the end, I think Jordan Love could easily be the best quarterback in this year's draft. And I love this fit. Bruce Arians is an offensive mastermind. If the Tampa Bay Bucs could get their hand on him, I love Jordan Love in a lot of spots. I love him with the Colts with that offensive line. I love him with the Tampa Bay Bucs. I love him with the Saints. I'd even love him with the Patriots. I love this kid's upside. I know that he regressed this year in college. A lot of people point to the poor offensive line at Utah State. We'll have to wait and see, but he has all the tools. He had an amazing combine. He could go as high as 6. But in this mock, I have them going to 11, and I have the Bucs moving up to grab them. Now, the reason why they moved up, obviously you got the Raiders and the Colts who could both take a quarterback. They jumped both those teams. The Jets moved down because they could probably still get their offensive linemen. Next up, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. And there's only been one wide receiver off the board. The Raiders looking for somebody to build the team around. Last year, of course, they showed a obvious interest in trying to add a wide receiver with Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is crazy. They lost him. They got an opportunity here to take the next potential Julio Jones. That's who people compare him to. And again, they're getting really good value here. The wide receiver out of Alabama, Jerry Jeudy, goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they get really good value there. I think it makes a lot of sense. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts could certainly go quarterback. I'm still of the assumption that the Colts are going to get Phillip Rivers in free agency. This is just me guessing. I don't know anything yet. But based off that assumption, I'm going to have them beefing up the defense, something that they definitely need. They could use a guy in the middle, and they're going to get the big fella out of South Carolina, Javon Kinlaw. Really good player, very athletic, could definitely collapse the pocket and help out that Indianapolis Colts defense. And now you're starting to build something there. They have a young defense as is. You're adding another nice young piece. If you add Phillip Rivers with that O-line, maybe you add another piece at free agency, maybe you draft a wide receiver in the second round, the Colts could really have a special team next year. Next up, we've got the New York Jets, who, of course, got a second-round pick from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In addition, moved down to number 14. Last year, the one thing I criticized the New York Jets for was their unwillingness to spend on that offensive line. They haven't had second-round picks due to the trade of Sam Darnold, so they haven't been able to beef up the O-line via the draft. Here, they still got the biggest hog molly on the market, that, of course, being Mekhi Becton, and they're going to grab him to be their left tackle of the future at number 14. They get the blindside protector for Sam Darnold that is desperately needed, and hopefully a guy that can open up holes for Le'Veon Bell. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos, very interesting pick here. I think they need electricity. I think they need to help out Drew Lock. They need a big-time weapon. And who better to grab than Henry Ruggs out of Alabama? He ran a 4.28 40, the type of guy that could take the top off a defense. You pair him with Cortland Sutton. All of a sudden, you've got fireworks on that offense, and you're really helping out your second-year quarterback with Drew Lock. Love this pick for the Denver Broncos, and I think it makes so much sense. I had him going there in my first mock. I still got him going there. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons. When I think of the Atlanta Falcons, I think of a team that desperately needs help on the defensive side of the football. And they really could use a pass rusher, right? They definitely could use another pass rusher. And they seem to always be picking right around here, right in the middle of the draft. There's a really talented player who I would love for the New York Giants to somehow trade up and get. I think he would fit the Joe Judge mindset. Incredibly versatile. Really like this guy. Could play on both the inside and out. And that is, of course, I hope I pronounced this right, K'Lavon Chaisson out of LSU. Just an athletic freak for a man of his size. I think he's 250 pounds. He could, play on both the end, and he's shown the ability to be very versatile. And I think that the Atlanta Falcons will not be able to pass him up here at number 16. Next up, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys, to me, probably need some help in that secondary. Whether it's a cornerback, whether it's a safety, they're probably going to lose Byron Jones. But the way I look at the Dallas Cowboys right now, they are a win-now team. They are a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl next year. Cornerbacks take a little while to develop. I think they want somebody who could have more of an immediate impact on this year's team, and that's why I still got them helping the secondary. They're going to take the first safety in this year's draft, McKinney, out of Alabama. Really, really good prospect. Him and Grant Delpit are my two favorite safeties in this year's draft. I've seen McKinney moving up draft charts, and I got Dallas taking him in the mid-first round at number 17. Now, we've got the Detroit Lions. This was originally the Dolphins' pick. The Lions, of course, traded down from 3 to 5. With the 5th pick, the Lions bulked up the interior defensive line by taking Derek Brown at number 5. They still need help at that cornerback spot. A lot of people had them taking Jeffrey Okudah. They moved down to 18. They fill in their other need here with Stephon Diggs' brother, Trayvon Diggs, out of Alabama, who had a really strong combine. He's tall. I think he's 6'2". Really good pick here by the Detroit Lions. I talked about this in my last mock, that Matt Patricia loves cover corners, press corners. Diggs will fit the bill here. Tall, athletic, strong combine, had a great showing. Goes to the Lions at 18. 19, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders with their second pick of the draft. They took the playmaker Jerry Jeudy at 12. They need some help in the middle. They need that supreme linebacker. That's why they're going to go out. They're going to get Patrick Queen of LSU. This year he filled in. He became the full-time starter. Was really good for LSU. Very athletic. Great side-to-side quickness. Is definitely going to help out that defense. Be that man in the middle. And I think it's a really good fit. Everything I read is that the Raiders are looking for a linebacker. I think Queen makes sense. They could also go Kenneth Murray here. But I had them taking Patrick Queen at number 19. Now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars with their second selection. The Jaguars took Tristan Wirfs. They beefed up the O-line at number 9. And they go a number of ways here. They could certainly use another playmaker on the offensive side of the football, get themselves a wide receiver. They could take a quarterback. They could certainly use one. We know that, unless they, have bought into the guy that, the guys they have. But you could certainly argue they could go quarterback. But with the departure of A.J. Boye, I think they need more help at that position in the secondary. They're not a win-now team. They're a team that's trying to build through the draft again, which is why I think it makes a lot of sense here for them to take Christian Fulton out of LSU. Another guy who had a pretty strong combine and fills a need for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it makes sense. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, and every mock you look at, you talk to almost any Eagles fan, they want a wide receiver. They are dying to grab a wide receiver, and most of them want to trade away Alshon Jeffrey. Well, a receiver that is similar to Alshon Jeffrey is T. Higgins. He's tall, he could go up, he could catch the 50-50 ball. I would think, obviously if Henry Ruggs fell here, I would think most Eagles fans would want him. He didn't fall, which is why I got them taking T. Higgins. There was a couple of other receivers that they certainly could have taken here, and they're about to fall off the board. You're about to see who else they could have taken. I like Higgins a lot. It's been rumored that the New York Giants could potentially try to grab him in round 2 if he's there, but I'm going to have the Eagles sticking with him here at number 21. Next up, we got the Buffalo Bills, and much like the Eagles, I think the Bills need another receiver. And when you look at the Bills' receiving core, they've got the slot guy with Cole Beasley. They got the guy that could take the top off the defense. They need a tall threat, much like the Philadelphia Eagles if they were to get rid of Alshon Jeffrey. And there is a tall threat here who is going to surge up draft charts based off the combine he had. Some may call this a reach, but I think teams are going to look at the combine that Chase Claypool had, and they're going to buy into it. Claypool ran I think it was like a 4.4 340 at 240 pounds. He's built like a tight end, but he could move. And they could certainly stick him at the tight end if they want. But I think he's going to move way up draft charts. He's a tall threat, a guy that could go up and catch the 50-50 ball with Josh Allen. Something that you're going to want, not the most accurate quarterback, but a guy with supreme arm strength that could throw it up, and this guy could come down with it. So I think it's a good fit for the Buffalo Bills. I think Claypool makes sense. New England Patriots, one of the more interesting teams to draft for because we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if Tom Brady's going to be back. To be honest with you, I can't answer that question. I'm still leaning that he will. If Brady's back, they could certainly go wide receiver to help him out. But when you look at the guys they're losing on their roster, they're losing Van Noy. They're probably losing McCourty, Jamie Collins. They need a pass rusher. They're losing a lot of those guys that helped that defense out last year. And there's a guy that's dropped here who may even fall in the second round, who could be on the New York Giants radar if he does because he didn't have the strongest of combines. I think he ran like a 5.04 for an edge rusher. Not very impressive. But A.J. Espensa is a very talented player out of Iowa. I think he had 27 sacks, and he fits what New England tries to do. I think it's a really good fit here. And I haven't even really seen him mock to New England that much, but I think he's a great fit for New England if he is there at 23. I like the fit. A.J. Spencer to the New England Patriots. Next up, the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints could go so many ways here. They go quarterback, but the top 4 are off the board. They could help out the defense at the cornerback position, which is what I originally did. I then changed it up. I think they need a little more punch at that wide receiver position. And this guy in the dome, a speed receiver, I love the fit in the dome in New Orleans. I think Sean Payton would love if he was still on the board here. I think it makes a lot of sense. Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State had a pretty strong combine, and like I said, really good wide receiver. It's a need. Perfect marriage. Next up, Minnesota Vikings. I say the same thing every year with the Minnesota Vikings. Last year they addressed the offensive line, but they still need help. It's a great team in terms of 53-man roster, but their weakness is in the trenches. They need to continue to bring in youthful guys. Last year they brought in Bradbury. This year they continue to do that, and they get the offensive lineman that a lot of people had as a top 3 or 4 pick just 3 or 4 weeks ago. They're getting great value with Andrew Thomas. He has plummeted down mock drafts. I've seen plenty of mocks where he's in the second round. And I know Giants fans are keeping their fingers crossed. And the Giants are certainly a team, along with others, that could look to trade back up into the back end of the first round if Thomas were to drop. There's a number of other offensive linemen here that they could potentially take. I'll mention one or two more. But Andrew Thomas to the Vikings at 25. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. This will be their second pick. They, of course, traded their middle pick at 26. They got their quarterback, and I'm going to have them actually sticking to the offensive side of the football. I almost went defense. I almost got them an offensive lineman. Had Andrew Thomas been there, I think I would have had Thomas going to the Dolphins. But because he's off the board, even though there's still some guys they could take, I'm going to get them. I'm going to have them getting a playmaker. I think they need a little punch to their offense. And Jonathan Taylor absolutely destroyed the combine. He's going to be the first running back off my board. He ran a 4.39 40. And he's a similar weight to that of Saquon Barkley. I think Barkley ran a 4.4. He's 5'10", a little smaller in stature, but he is going to soar up draft charts. I certainly could see him going in the first round, and I think he could make sense to the Miami Dolphins. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle, really interesting team here. They could go wide receiver. They could try to bulk up that secondary, but I think they're going to lose Jadeveon Clowney. I really do, and I think they're going to look at this guy as a guy that has a very high ceiling. He's still a little bit underdeveloped. He needs to bulk up a little bit more. But Gross Matos out of Penn State is a player I love. I've coveted another guy that's on my radar in the second round for the New York Giants. In this mock, I don't have him getting there. Love this kid's story. You know, some of the adversity he had to overcome when he was growing up. Love his upside. Give me Gross Matos to the Seattle Seahawks at 27. I think it's a really good fit. I think Carroll gets a lot out of him. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens. And one of the holes on the Baltimore Ravens, believe it or not, is the linebacker position. And it's a position that, you know, obviously Ray Lewis man for a long time, the best linebacker probably in my lifetime. And at 28, there's still a really good linebacker there. Incredibly athletic out of Oklahoma. Love the value here for the Baltimore Ravens. Give me Kenneth Murray. I think he got a little banged up during the combine, but by all accounts, he's good to go. This guy is a freak of nature, great side-to-side quickness. Good value here at 28, and it fills a need. Makes a lot of sense. Next up, we got the Tennessee Titans. I'm projecting them to lose Jack Conklin. By all accounts, they're going to. Well, that's a void they got to fill, right? They got to get themselves an offensive tackle, and there's a guy with some upside here. He had a pretty solid combine out of USC. I've actually seen him mocked ahead of Andrew Thomas in some mocks. I got them going with Austin Jackson, the left tackle out of USC. Think it's a really good fit. I mean, they need to improve that offensive line. Jack Conklin was one of the most important players on that offense, and if they are going to lose him, I think it makes too much sense to go offensive line in the first round. Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers, to me, got to try to improve that run defense, whether it's the defensive tackle, whether it's the linebacker, but they definitely need another weapon in the passing game. Outside of Adams, they don't really have anybody to throw to, and Denzel Mims out of Baylor is a very good wide receiver prospect. He's a good route runner. He creates separation, and he killed it at the NFL Draft Combine. I originally had him as a second-round pick. I got him moving up into the back end of the first with the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers gets something out of him. San Francisco 49ers at number 31. This team is one of the hardest teams to mock because, quite honestly, they don't have a lot of holes. They definitely could use a wide receiver, but I thought there was a player that I think is being undervalued in some of these mock drafts that I really like. Huge safety. I mean, this guy's big. Grant Delpit out of LSU. He's a heavy hitter. He's athletic. I had him mocked to the Cowboys at 17 in my first mock. I have him moving down here. Instead, I had the Cowboys taking McKinney, the other safety out of Alabama. The Niners get the second safety off the board with Grant Delpit. And then finally, the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, one of the hardest teams to mock as well. I've seen, people talk about their needs. They don't have a lot. They're a very good football team. But I would guess if they're going to go somewhere in the first round, it would be on the defensive side. Their offense is pretty stacked. Maybe they could add another wide receiver, but it's a very deep wide receiver draft. I think KC probably looks at that and they say to themselves, we could still get a receiver in the second, the third, the fourth round. We're going to go get ourselves a cornerback, and it's a cornerback that's not being talked about a lot out of TCU. I've seen him start to move up charts, and that is Jeff Gladney. So there you have it. There is the final pick of the first round. Hopefully you guys liked it. Like I said, I'm going to have I'm probably going to do a second round mock draft in a couple of days. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know, and I'll post the first round, and we'll work off of it. But thank you guys for watching, and as always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.